6 o'clock, I'm going to call the May 29th meeting of the Peru Planning Commission to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Sandy Faust.
Here.
Carrie Young. Here. Vincent Edmonds.
Here.
Joseph Molinick.
Here.
Phyllis Torrent.
Here.
James Comerford.
Here.
And Scott Wilson and Rick Day are not here. Reading and approving of previous month's minutes. I have a copy if you would like them.
I make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the minutes. Okay, we have new business. The only thing on the agenda today is discussing the ordinance requirements for the building of new construction on building sites that have been vacated by unsafe or blighted homes, buildings. So, does anybody have any discussion? The recommendation is 3-foot side setbacks on each side.
And we'd be keeping the 10-foot and the front and rear.
Front and rear, yeah. I was driving down a lot of the roads, a lot of them in Oakdale.
Yeah,
And,
I've been busy.
huh?
I've been busy.
I feel that 3 feet is just a little too
Narrow.
little.
Yeah.
When I drive through a town, I like to see not really spacious yards, but I don't want to see the houses crammed together. I lived in one where I could reach out my window and talk, shake
Yeah.
hands with my neighbor.
I agree with you.
I didn't like that. I don't think we need the full 10 feet that's on the ordinance now, but I think 3 feet is a bit too small. Do we have any other opinions?
Well, when you look at it, if you have a 40-foot lot, even if you had the 5-foot, that would only be a 30-foot wide house. So we're going to have a hard time getting people to build on this. Most people that are going to build on it, unless you're a contractor that's going to build a house on spec, are going to have more of as much of a setback away from the property as they can. 3 feet from the property, that would include the eaves going out from the house if there was eaves on it or whatnot. Then it's 3 feet from the other property, so you've got a 6-foot separation between the houses.
Which is the length of you.
A little
Lay
less.
down between them.
A little less.
Okay.
But that is also not that unusual around here anyways.
I know.
But if we don't get people to build houses on these lots, and we have these restrictions in there, then what we're going to get is people putting up pole barns, so on and so forth, which are not going to add to our property taxes enough. Because
We don't want them.
we don't want what?
We don't want pole barns. We depreciate the other people's property.
Exactly. But if these setbacks aren't enough for them, allow them to build a decent-sized house on it, and it's not going to be that many properties where this would actually be a real issue.
Yeah, there were a lot of 50-foot.
Yeah,
A lot of the properties that we're going to deal with having to move those setback lines that I have seen, the current building plan on them, a lot of them actually encroaches on their neighbor's property. If you look at the property lines and the surveys on them, it's not going to allow them obviously to do that, and it's going to move them over into that parcel where it belongs and if you have a 3-foot setback on your property line, then they are going to have to deal with also fire resistant Indiana State Code. So they are going to have to meet that, and no windows on that side of the house, They have to have fire-resistant
And that's only
drywall,
at the
that sort,
three-
I mean, and it's a pretty long list.
That's only at the 3-foot mark, though.
That's only at the 3
As you
foot.
start to get back to the 5-foot mark, then you can put windows,
Yep.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So, most people aren't gonna go with this, but if we can make it more attractive, and for most of these properties, they wouldn't be building from where the existing house, a lot of them, the houses were 3 feet from the property line, so it would actually change nothing on that particular lot.
You know, if your
And our
house
city
burns-
ordinance it also states that it has to, when someone builds a new property in a neighborhood, it needs to look uniformed and match the current, what is there on existing houses on the block. So that helps as well.
And that's mostly, most of that's actually for the setback in the front, where you can't have like one house sticking out, or it has to go along the line of the property for that house, and that's mostly where that, as far as they want to build a ranch house and a bunch of colonials,
Yeah,
no, and that would not be desirable, but that's where we're working, that's where I was talking to Gabe about that other thing about donating those properties to the builder or the person that wants to build the house. We're gonna get 3 or 4 grand for that property. If we donate it to them, then we actually have a say in how that house can be built and what it looks like from the front. So that'd be another win-win. But
you know, if your house burns down, you have to rebuild on your foundation, or they will not give you your money.
right. They're not gonna put in a new foundation.
Well, I know a place that burned down, and they put a house back where it was. The only thing that saved them, they had a Florida room downstairs in that place, in the basement area.
So,
Okay.
So are the bulk of these properties owned by economic development?
Yeah.
Is there a plan that we know of from economic development in terms of what they will do with the property?
Yeah. They have on, between these two lists from when I spoke to them, all of the properties between these two lists they already have agreements for purchase on them, except for 4 of them. That was the last I spoke to them. And from talking to them, most of those, actually, I think they said they're going to say most, but they do believe all of them, are from neighbors right beside there who are planning on using it as yard, build a garage, build something to go with their current property. We, as a government, I do believe, from dealing with what I've dealt with, at least in the city, we have to give option to adjacent property owners before you open it up to the public for bids. So that's what has been done with all of these, and they've kind of swiped them up.
You got another one in papers?
We need,
the list.
The list?
which one?
The list.
Copy. So are we having a discussion based on a recommendation to city council for just the properties on this list? Or is it for any property that comes into the
Available.
city's
Yeah.
ownership for demolition?
Yes.
Wait, 2 separate questions. So is it,
Onward.
It would be, the discussion would be for, if the planning commission wants to recommend something going to city council for any building in the city of Peru that is demolished or torn down due to unsafe building conditions or the blight program, which that will be over eventually, you know. So we don't want to put something permanent just on that in there for it to need repealed 3-4 years down the road. But any building due to unsafe building that has been demolished doesn't necessarily have to be in the city's name. It's for any of them.
See, on Washington Avenue, why that street is so wide there is uncounted. They don't have no 100, now I have 130 feet back of my lot. They don't have that, they have shorter lots. So we need to keep that in mind too. They're not all true, 130. Some of them, even the lots across the street from me, one of them was 55 on the corner, the next one's 50. Mine's 52, 7/8 or something there, but I have a 430 lot, and I live on the corner of Monroe. And there's a house that's, it's not on top of me, but my bedroom's over there. I could hear the kids going up the stairs. And even, that there was quite a bit of space there, let alone when somebody was on top of you.
Of course, now, with these fire regulations, with the firewall and all that, that will cut down on 90% of the noise going across that they would not hear if they built that close. Because it has to be a firewall at that point.
So really, we're only talking about lot sizes 50 feet and up, because 33 feet, even at 3 feet, you're taking 6 feet off of that, and you've got a house that, well, it would probably qualify for one of those tiny homes.
Or you could on those thin lots like that, there obviously was a house there before, and as long as it didn't, I don't think so, we can't approve them to build encroaching on their neighbor's property necessarily, but if it didn't encroach on their neighbor's property, to build on the same footprint with the previous one, which is included in there.
That would have to come back through us, through the
Right.
zoning board of appeals, to get those waived on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
This is just to lure, give contractors and people going like, oh, okay, so that's what the setback's on there, yeah, I will build on that house. And not having to go through that every single time for every single property.
Right, and it's up to you guys. If the majority of you feel like 3 foot is way too close, or you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's always a 5 foot. There's just better probably than 10 foot on each side, leaving 20 foot between each house.
How does anybody else feel? James?
Do we know if economic development is planning to sell the property to a developer, or?
They have to begin with offering the property to adjacent property owners.
Okay.
At least that's what we have to do at the city, so I'm sure them as government also must do the same. And at the point that I talked to them, all of them except for 4 between those 2 lists, the adjacent property owners, the neighbors, bought those, wanted to say, okay, we'll give you $1,500, $1,000, whatever it is, and we want that as yard, or to build a garage, or whatever they want to do with it.
A lot of them would like these properties next door to them,
Yeah,
but it's kind of tied up right now as what we can do with them, because there's money still owed on tearing them down and everything like that.
needs.
There's a lot of money involved there that's, that has to be gotten back.
That's a part of title work,
Yeah,
and going through a title company and getting those cleared.
I don't think the city's going to give that property away. I don't think that city's going to give any property away when there's money owed on them.
Is there
Sandy, you
money?
can probably go, there are liens on all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Demolish the building, and there's costs of the demo costs and everything else. Yes, there are liens on those properties.
Yeah,
But yet the neighbors have all said they wanted them.
Going through title work, and I'm sure applying to have those liens taken off. And I'm totally assuming that's
Blight
just
elimination comes through grants, so those
Right.
properties are off the table as far as that's concerned.
Right.
That would only be the unsafe properties, where the city's going to try to get it from the original owner first, because there's lawsuits already pending against them. So depending on, where we run into problems with that is the out-of-state property owners, where we can't get a hold of them and so on and so forth.
Right, and those properties that we run through the unsafe building fund, the $100,000 a year, we get them from county commissioners, taxes haven't been paid. Most of them have $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in back property taxes too. It's not just our city liens that are on there. There's a lot of costs involved. And these people who want them as a yard and so forth and so on, it's getting them back on the tax roll. they're going to be paying property taxes from that point on them. So
But they're paying property taxes on a lot, is that correct?
unless they build on it, like a garage or it may be a neighbor, a rental property or something like that. That's
You
what
pay
we're here today.
taxes on a cement drive.
The ideal thing would be to have them build houses on them where we get improved property taxes of a much higher nature than a garage or something along those lines, or a yard.
Do your codes change much between the 3 foot and the 5 foot? Do you still have those?
Fire, you mean,
Yes.
state fire? There are still some fire restrictions from what I looked at 5 foot, but not near your
What they
3
would be with the 3
foot.
foot.
I mean, the 3 foot is like, those codes in there seem to me, while reading, like, they don't want you to build that close. You can build it 6 foot from your neighbor, 3 foot on each side, but we're gonna make these stipulations, it's not cost effective.
But you move it 2 feet
But-
back. And that would be
2
up to
foot
the,
back.
that would be up to the individual
Yep.
homeowner.
Right.
Now, that also counts from the eaves. So if their house, that wall is actually, but that's from the edge of the property. So if you've got a 2-foot eave on there,
That makes it 5 foot then.
and you're good to go with the lesser restrictions. But that would be up to whoever wanted to build on the property or whatnot, if they wanted to move it back a little bit or that. It's just an enticement.
One, two, three,
Do we have any discussion?
7, 8,
Um,
10.
just a point of clarification, Stephanie, so did you say all but 4 of the lots on the list are desired by neighbors?
Adjacent property owners, correct.
All but 4?
That are owned by Miami County Economic Development. Now, some of those were donated to, I do believe, Scratching Post and maybe someone else on there. You see, I put who the deeded owner is at this point on there. But all but 4 through Miami County Economic Development have agreements where an adjacent property owner wants that land.
That showed a desire for the land, not.
Well,
They haven't signed
I
anything
think
yet.
Brenda's at some point last week had spoke with Miami County. They're getting paperwork in line for it at this point in time. Because there was some sort of legal, wait period and just the way
So
government goes.
did you say that they had submitted paperwork for like building proposal or something like that on those? Okay.
Well, that's just for the
Plan.
purchase of it.
Okay.
The Miami County Economic Development, I don't think is really concerned with if they're going to use it as a yard, garage. Their job was to take these and get rid of them,
Right.
disperse them out.
In other words, the city interest is not in their best interest.
Okay, well, does anybody want to make a motion on,
I think we're kind of ahead of ourselves a little bit on this. So some of these liens are kind of money got in, see what kind of money's coming in and stuff.
Hey, Phyllis,
We're on-
on the liens on those properties and everything, that really, I mean, I don't know how to say
nothing-
it, it's none of our concern.
no?
It has nothing to do with us, or it has to do with the people who wish to purchase it, the city, and probably the title company and an attorney to try to get rid of those liens. We can't do anything with those.
We're only voting on the
Setbacks.
setback on the side.
Try to make these more desirable.
No, I mean, anywhere in there, that was just something, the paper that I have written up is just from me going through and looking at those properties and realizing a lot of them encroach and covering that. Anything in there, you guys can feel free to have suggestions to change if you wish and discuss it among yourselves.
My question would be, using 3 instead of, let's say, 5 or something, does it make it that much more desirable? Do people actually want to build that close?
I wouldn't want to build a house on top of another one.
That would also allow them to build, a lot of these houses were built at the 3-foot, which is what it was before they changed it to the 10-foot. That would allow them to build on the existing footprint of the last house that was there.
which I think is too close.
A lot of those houses were built on their neighbor's property, and it would require them to move the existing footprint back 3 foot inside the property line also. Because we,
And you're gonna get in, the guy wants to paint his fence, and you're gonna get on, I know where I live, they put a garage right on the line. There's barely a difference between where that garage sits and ours, probably maybe 2 feet. And they were doing upholstery work up there, and they didn't have a garage. So they had one of those, what is it, Salamander in there? And I told my husband, I said, well, we're getting us some more insurance on our garage. Because if that garage goes, ours will go too. And that's when you go putting these houses on top of one another, that's what happens.
Well, you're talking the garage, and that's different in the fire codes also. If you've read the fire codes, that's a different animal altogether.
right, that's an accessory building. An
Yes,
accessory
they
building
have their
is
own-
completely different.
This is only for the primary residence.
An accessory building actually can be built very close to the property line, I mean, per code, and I think mostly just counting on the fact that there's not going to be another one right there. But sometimes there is.
And
We haven't heard from you.
Go ahead.
Are we looking at the discussion of just these properties on the list or future other properties too?
Future.
Everything?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
there won't be, the blight elimination program is coming to an end. But on the next ones for the unsafe buildings and stuff like that, this would apply to those properties.
That's every year. Every year, there's unsafe building
Yeah.
funds, and as long as the building department keeps working up there, there will be unsafe buildings torn down every year. So it would cover all those.
Which is killing our tax base. Well, it's not killing it, but it's certainly not helping it any.
No, it doesn't help.
So what would be wrong with the discussion of looking at the 5 foot instead of the 3? Yeah, I don't
That's
know,
what's
but-
my thing, if you can have recommendations on any, changing anything.
You can change it to
nothing-
5 from 3.
I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels.
Well,
I'm just,
I mean,
you
to
know,
me,
putting it out there.
I would think that 5 is a more logical number, just in my opinion, because I don't personally think that people would want to build on the 3 feet. And with some of these smaller properties, it just doesn't, I mean, between 3 and 5 feet is really not that much of a difference when you're considering the size of the property that's already that small.
Yeah.
So they're limited already in what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah, like the 28 foot and the little triangle piece. They're pretty,
But
Not
you know, it's just-
applicable.
And we're not the final decision, correct, either,
No,
on
this
that?
will go to
You're the
city council
advisory
Monday
board.
night. We're just a recommendation.
Correct.
okay.
We want to make sure also in here, anything that we're taking to council is complete and thought through, and any questions or objections that they might have coming at, that they're covered in what we take to them. That way there's not a reason of, well, this wasn't thought out and prepared enough, so we're kicking it back. I think I've tried to do everything, but
Well, I've driven
Okay.
around, looked at all the properties, every one of them, and tried to imagine a house
Yeah.
3 feet from the adjoining property. And to me, when I drive through a town and it looks nice and clean and well-kept, the houses aren't jammed together. There's room to breathe. And I personally think aesthetically, 5 feet would be better. But that,
I agree with that. I don't, that 3 foot pit, you gotta think about overhangs and everything else in it.
Overhangs count, Phyllis.
Oh.
okay. Who wants to make the motion?
I'll make the motion that we take this to vote.
Okay. We will,
Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Are we voting on 3 feet right now, or?
We haven't actually
as
put it
written.
out there yet. Just gonna vote.
Well, then we're taking, No, we're not taking it to vote then. We're not taking this to vote if we're going to discuss.
Are you, well, if you want the 3-foot, would make
I
the
think
motion
3
for
feet.
that?
I think 3 foot is
And if
okay.
that's not
And it's
passed,
up to the,
then
what we want to get this.
Should we first make a motion, or somebody,
To
if you
accept.
wish, make a motion to discuss the difference between 3 and 5 foot? Because we can't really,
We don't need to make a motion to do that. We're in the discussion phase
Okay.
now. So that was premature.
okay, perfect. Take that off.
so,
Among us,
uh-huh.
do we want to take this to vote, or do we, the way it's read, or do you think we need to change the setbacks?
I would like to change the setback. How does everybody else feel?
And what would you like to see the setback at?
5.
5 feet. Phyllis?
That's what?
5.
Phyllis, the discussion is whether or not
3 feet. or
you
5?
would like to vote on this, do you have a copy of this?
No,
Okay.
I don't have any copies of anything.
Whether, you were given it last meeting. Whether or not you would like to take this to vote with a setback of 3 foot on each side, or change that to 5. Am I correct? Do you get that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't want no 3 foot. It's ridiculous.
So would you like to see it at 3 foot or 5?
5, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not overjoyed with that.
I would like to see it at 5.
Vince?
I too, I would like to see it at 5. I guess I would just like to go on the record and say it's a really unique opportunity to have economic development own so many properties. And maybe not this time around, but it sure would be cool if, I don't know, if there's a nonprofit developer that could come into our area and really be able to do some creative things with small lots. Because you can provide housing, certainly, for someone on a small lot. It doesn't have to be a 3,000 square foot house. And our community has, residents that I think would certainly benefit from small homes. And so, at what point in our conversations are we able to recognize an entity like economic development, bring them to the table, and do real planning in our community for housing that would benefit all of our residents?
First off, you'd have to go back through your codes and see what the square foot requirements are for the sound, because those would have to also be changed if you're talking about smaller homes.
Well, again, it would start somewhere with the developer. And
Well, that's-
in other communities, there are nonprofit developers that
Yeah.
work with banks and
Well, we-
certainly works with the city, and they take on projects like this. And so,
And we're trying to get something going with Habitat for Humanity,
okay.
and that, but you've got to work at that. I mean, you've got to actually go out and talk to them. We can't just, economic development is not going to do that. That's not their purview at all. Their purview is, they basically hold the lots until they are disposed of.
Okay.
Back again, you got a 3 foot thing, you got a kid out in the backyard doing fireworks. You're gonna have right on top of your house.
Well, 5 feet
Yeah.
isn't going to make much
Yeah.
difference on that.
Well,
Well, a huge thing, Carrie, you go ahead and go first.
No, you're fine, go
What
ahead.
you think. I think the a huge thing, and I didn't want to, if you guys were good with the 3 foot, I'm fine with that. But looking at a house built here, and you got to think your accessory building, if you have a garage behind there, your setback is 3 foot on each side. For a house to be built with a 3 foot setback as well, I think a 5 foot setback brings it in at 2 foot, so you can kind of see the garage behind it, which to me is more uniformed of the way the houses are now anyways in town.
Anyways.
I was just,
Okay.
actually, I was on the same thing as what, she was with the whole 3 and 5, so.
How do you feel, Joe?
I think 3 feet is fine.
Okay. I would like to bring this to a vote. I'd like to make a motion to bring this to a vote, that we make the setbacks for the blighted and unsafe properties 5 feet on the sides. And we can vote on that and then
Okay, so.
see where it goes.
Well, so basically what you're saying is you want to amend this 3 feet to 5 feet?
Right.
And then we vote on this.
Right,
That would take care of it. The whole thing, that's what it would be.
yeah,
And that's what we will present to city council.
right,
Okay,
if it passes.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
Okay. Ready to vote?
So it's changing the verbiage to 5 feet on the side setbacks from 3 feet.
Got it. Sandy Faust? Yes. Carrie Young?
Yes.
Vincent Edmonds?
Yes.
Joseph Molinax?
Yep.
Phyllis Torrance?
Yes,
James Comerford?
Yes.
6 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes.
Passes.
Motion passes. This will go to the board on Monday night.
You'll have to go there and
I will be there.
be there for me.
Oh, no,
I'll be in Florida.
I will be there.
Okay.
We've been hanging out a lot together at Board of Works and city council meetings, so.
See you.
Yeah.
It always does help with things like that. I know Joe is always there. The more members that are at those council meetings, when questions are asked so that they can be answered, because a lot of times they do have questions that we don't think of. It does help a lot. I know. Sometimes there are questions that I feel like iffy on, like, and Joe is good at standing up and speaking, but sometimes it's better to have more.
Tom Guston will be in charge of the council meeting. Kevin is on vacation all over. I don't mean Kevin. I knew too many Calvins and Kevins in my neighborhood. Kurt. I went to down there, all the soldiers' monuments, everything like that, all over. He took vacation. So he told us that at the last council meeting, he would not be there.
Okay, I'm having, I don't know how many of you sat on the board when the improvement location permit for roadside stands was passed through.
For the what?
Improvement location permit for roadside stands, the change in that, I'm having some issues with it.
Let's have that discussion. Let's close out this
After.
meeting,
Okay,
and then we'll discuss that.
okay.
That's just a friendly discussion.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.